All right. Well, with that, we'll get it started. Thanks everyone for joining us here today for our webinar on Northern Flying in Canada, and we'll get started. So I'll be moderating today. My name is Aidan Northcote. I'm the digital marketing specialist at MFC Training, and I'll let the rest of the crew introduce themselves.
I'm Brianna Ricketts. I'm a first officer with Air Borealis in Happy Valley Goose Bay. I've been a first officer for almost 3 years. I have 3,000 hours and I love my job.
I'm Evan Purchase. I'm also a first officer with Air Borealis. Been flying with Air Borealis since August. Raised in Goose Bay and happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Jacuzzi. I'm currently the Director of Aviation Programs at Exchange Income Corporation, EIC, in Winnipeg. The more fun side of my job, sometimes anyway, I have flown for Calm Air. I've flown the ATR 42 and 72 for the better part of a decade in the Arctic. Different part of the Arctic, certainly, than the East Coast, where I understand a lot of you are probably from. But getting to experience none of it from the air has been incredible as well.
Cool. So just to give a bit of an agenda what we're going to talk about today, where we're going. First, we'll address the question, what is Northern Flying? What does it mean to fly in Canada's north? And we'll have a bit of a panel discussion on that. Then we'll dive into questions and comments about what it's like to be a pilot for Air Borealis and fly in Canada's north. What does the day-to-day look like? What's it like to be a northern pilot in Canada? We'll then talk a little bit about training options, how you can end up being a pilot in Northern Canada. Robin will talk about the Life and Flight program and its career pathway. And then we'll open up the floor for some questions before wrapping it up. So what does Northern Flying mean? Brianna, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So Northern Flying in Labrador is definitely a pretty incredible experience. We get to land in all these tiny communities along the Labrador coast, tiny gravel strip runways, usually covered with ice. And yeah, there's no security at these airports. It's just you show up and there's this little tiny building with one ticket counter and one ticket agent, and all these people out there waiting to go on the flight.
Awesome. Evan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so Northern Flying for me is mostly being a lifeline for the coast of Labrador. So we do Medevac services, we bring all the groceries, we bring your medications, we bring your skidoos and your four-wheelers up if you want them. And just a lot of different experiences, different scenery, lots of wildlife, and an experience you get up here like you won't anywhere else.
Awesome. Robin, I know you have a bit of a different perspective, but still, what does Northern Flying mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both Brianna and Evan totally. The part that I think sets Northern Flying apart from a lot of the other work that you do, in the southern parts of the country, a paved strip to a paved strip kind of airline life, is that it's a lot more hands-on. You get to be involved in more aspects of the airline operation entirely. There's fewer, all the resources you need, but fewer people to help you out. So, you really get to be a part of the company, a part of the communities that you're serving, and you really have a close connection with, the passengers that are on board your plane. And it's a different experience. It's kind of a community-centric experience, and it's, challenging conditions, a lot more, as I said, hands-on than the stuff you find in the South. And it's just, really good experience to build your time as a pilot.
Awesome. So life as an Air Borealis pilot. So for those of you that don't know, Air Borealis is a carrier based out of Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Labrador. That's where Evan and Brianna fly out of. So what does the life of an Air Borealis pilot look like? Brianna, do you want to start?
Yeah, so every day is definitely different. You're not sure what you're doing the next day until 6 o'clock the night before, and you could be doing either cargo flights or passenger flights or a combination of both. And we do scheduled passenger flights and charter flights. And the picture here on the left, that's landing on an Esker out in Mustassin Lake. So we do lots of outpost flying and float flying, as you can see on the right. That's definitely my favorite part of it. And yeah.
Evan, what would you say the day-to-day and what life is like as an Air Borealis pilot?
Yeah, so kind of what Brianna said, it's pretty unpredictable. You could be doing a bit of everything, whether you're on floats, whether you're off strip, on strip, land on beaches, hills, ice strips. Unpredictable weather from 15 statute miles right down to IFR minimums, and going all over the coast, stuff can change pretty quick, whether it's your schedule, whether it's the weather, whether it's the crew you're with. But yeah, it's definitely a new experience every day, and there's never a dull moment with it.
Awesome. So Brianna, you want to maybe talk about the locations where Air Borealis pilots fly and the communities they serve?
Yeah, so as you can tell on the map, this is just a small portion of all the places we go. We have the North Coast and the South Coast of Labrador. So we provide a scheduled service, 961, 962, and it goes to Rigolette, Makovic, Postville, Hopedale, Natwishish, and Nain. And we have our South Coast, which is usually our hospital flights, which is Cartwright, Black Tickle, Charlottetown, Port Hope Simpson, Fox Harbor, and Mary's Harbor. And we also go to Boise's Bay almost every single day, and occasionally we get to go to Wabash. So flying in each of these communities, they all have gravel strips ranging from, I think Nain is our shortest, is 1,900 feet long. And we have Boise's Bay, which is our longest gravel strip. I think it's 8,000 feet long. And yeah, each of these places, we know every rock, every island, every certain way to get in if the weather's bad. And it's incredible what we do up here.
Awesome. So maybe you'd like to speak a bit about the aircraft that takes you to these places.
Yeah, so we fly the de Havilland DHC-6 Twin Otter on wheels and floats. And it's an incredible aircraft. It's meant for this type of flying, bush flying. We push it to its limits. We fly in the most extreme weather in the world. When we leave Goose Bay control zone, it's all uncontrolled airspace. So we're always talking to the other pilots on the frequencies. And this picture here on the right is a picture of the co-pilot's perspective. You can see it's just all your rustic six-pack instruments. And in the background there, that is Sable Island. So we were about to go land on the beach.
Cool. Anything to add about the aircraft there, Evan?
Yeah, so it's pretty incredible aircraft. You can push it right to its limits and it'll perform every bit, whether you're going out first thing in the morning with minus 50 or you're going on with a 50 knot headwind or tailwind. Plane will take every bit of it. Perfect for doing off strip stuff, short runways. You can stop it pretty quick. But yeah, uncontrolled. I believe we had 9 or 10 Twin Otters there now, and every single one has its own personality, but they all do the job needed, and they do it very well.
Awesome.
That's so funny. I say that about the ATR too, that they all have their own personalities.
Yeah.
The quirks, I love it.
Cool. So Brianna, you want to talk a bit about Outpost Flying there?
Yeah, so Outpost is probably one of the most amazing things that we do. It's probably my second favorite thing. So we're basically landing in the middle of nowhere. Like we're either landing on the top of a hill, on a bog, on a marsh, on an esker. And we're usually bringing the Innu and the native people in for hunting and fishing trips. So they're usually hunting for caribou or fishing for salmon or char or trout. And yeah, the plane is specially equipped with the STOL kit, which stands for short takeoffs and landings. And it basically gives the aircraft maximum performance. And it has vortex generators equipped. And yeah, it's amazing what these captains are trained to do, and we're trained to do it as well. We get to follow in their footsteps.
Wicked. So let's talk medevac.
So yeah, our medevac service is a 24/7 hour medevac team, and you need 500 hours on total time to be able to do the medevac service. And we supply service for the North and South Coast, and we bring people into Goose Bay for medical appointments, and we bring them to St. Anthony, and if there's not enough beds, we fly them out to Publish. And a story a captain told me a couple days ago, actually, he was flying a woman out of Hopedale, and she was pregnant. And anyways, they landed back in Goose Bay, and her water broke. And a couple hours later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby, and she ended up naming the baby Otter, and she had twins. But no, that's not true. But anyways, he told me that, and I thought I thought it was funny. But yeah, it's pretty incredible what we do when it comes to our medevac service. We have a stretcher on board and oxygen, so they can the nurses and medical team on board know what to do.
Wicked. Awesome. So Sable Island, you mentioned, was in that picture on the Twin Otter when we discussed the aircraft. Do you want to go into a bit more detail about this amazing location?
Yeah, so Sable Island, I've been there once so far, and hopefully I'll return. It was about 2 years ago when I went, and it's an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's about 200 kilometers east of Nova Scotia, and we bring scientists in there for exploration. And the photo there on the far left, all those little black dots, that's seals. They're just chilling on the beach, I guess. And I also got to see some wild horses, and landing on the beach on a beautiful day was pretty amazing. Here in the middle of nowhere, basically. And yeah, it's awesome.
Evan, have you had any experience at Sable Island?
I was supposed to go about a month ago, but the weather was down, so I never got to. But I'm hoping next one I'm going to try and squeeze in there. Fingers crossed.
Awesome. So I know, Brianna, you're pretty excited to talk about this slide and this project.
Yeah, this is a cool thing we get to do. I've done it probably 3 or 4 times now. It's the SPCA project Rescue Me, and we take instead of passengers on our flight, we have lots of dogs on board, and they come from all different communities along the coast, and we bring them into Goose Bay, and they spend a couple nights at the SPCA here, and if they don't get adopted in Goose Bay, we fly them to Newfoundland. So we got to fly to Gander this day, and we had, I think, 30 crates on board and 40 something dogs. Some of the crates have like 9 or 10 puppies in them. And it's the picture on the right there is myself and Sean Cox. He's a great captain. And we got our masks on, and that's not for COVID reasons. It definitely really smelly flight and a very noisy flight. So the headset, the noise canceling for sure is really great. And yeah, it was definitely an experience I'll never forget.
So is this an ongoing project or an ongoing operation that Air Borealis looks after, or was this a one-time operation?
No, so the SPCA, whenever they want to start a charter, when they have enough dogs equipped from different communities along the coast, then the project starts.
Awesome. Cool. This is a bit of a seasonal opportunity that definitely I mean, Labrador is not necessarily the North Pole, but do you want to speak about the Santa Claus flight?
Yeah, so every year around Christmas time, of course, our chief pilot, Keith Leonard, he dresses up as Santa Claus, and he usually takes kids on a local flight around Goose Bay with all the pretty Christmas lights, and he gives out candy and stuff to the kids. And this particular winter, I think this was 2 winters ago now, I got to fly with him and be his elf. And yeah, when I did it, it was during COVID, so we didn't actually have kids on board. We ended up doing a little video and posting it online, just thanking everyone from Air Borealis.
Awesome. So one of the big things about northern flying is obviously flying on floats. So So I'll open up the floor to Brianna and Evan. What's that like taking off and landing, and how's that as an experience?
Well, flying floats is definitely the main reason I love it. Like, it's my number one favorite thing for sure, and it's definitely a challenge. Like the photo on the left there with the black and white type look, you can tell it's a glassy water day, so it's definitely one of our main challenges for sure. You're basically landing on a mirror, so you have no depth perception of what you're doing, and it's definitely a challenge. And we do crosswind takeoffs and landings, and if the river runs like east to west and you got a crosswind coming from the north, you can do this one float takeoff, which is shown in the top photo there. And it's incredible what these captains can do, and it's insane, and I love it.
Cool. Evan, I know you have some experience starting with floats. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've done a couple training flights so far, working towards getting my float rating, but yeah, definitely looking forward to getting it and hopefully getting on to fly some floats. Twin Otter, like I said, is you can push it right to its limits and you can put it into some pretty weird and freaky spots. And just going in on some of the rivers, like the photo to the left there, it's just amazing scenery, amazing experiences, weird loads that most other companies don't move. But yeah, definitely looking forward to getting mine done.
Awesome.
Yeah. We get to
I
bring
gotta tell you,
into,
I have experience on larger aircraft more so than float flying, but the one or two times in my life that I've ever been in a float aircraft, and one of the times I was fortunate enough to get to fly as a co-pilot in an Otter on floats. It was a single, not a twin. But the number one favorite flying experience that I've ever had in my entire life. If I could, start it all over again, or maybe, go switch careers sometime later in life, I feel like I'm going to move out to Goose Bay with y'all and start floats, because that would make me happier than anything in the world. It's the best job.
yeah.
Cool.
And the photo on the bottom right, actually, that's probably one of my favorite places to go. It's called Mustassin Lake, and it was a lake created by an asteroid like 40 million years ago. You could Google it on like Wikipedia and stuff and read about it. But yeah, it was one of the places that was the most hottest recorded ever on Earth when the asteroid hit. And not many people get to go there, and we got to take astronauts in there actually to do a little science experiment, little survey. And yeah, it's definitely some special places you get to go on floats.
Cool. So we've reached Air Borealis's namesake. Maybe do you want to talk about the scenery flying up north and the wilderness that you experience?
Yeah, so basically the slide explains itself. It's beautiful. Like even last week, I got to see them a couple times with a group of friends. Like they're always out on the go. And the picture in the top left there with the float plane and the lights in the background, that's probably one of my favorite photos of all times. But one of the mechanics took that in September. And the mechanics go down to the plane every night and make sure it's ready to fly the next day. And the wilderness, I've never seen them flying yet. I know a couple of our co-pilots and captains, they've got to see them flying recently. So yeah, maybe one day I'll get to experience that.
Awesome. Now, I know when it comes to flying the north, one of the things that a lot of people think about is the wilderness and the outdoors. So maybe if you can speak about a bit of the lifestyle on and off the job.
Yep, so lots of cool pictures here. The picture with all of us on Skidoo, that's all co-pilots. If you move to Goose Bay, you basically got to get a Skidoo because, yeah, it's just the wilderness, and like salmon fishing is one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, definitely have to be an outdoorsy person if you want to move to Goose Bay. It might be intimidating for some people. Like we got no Walmart or McDonald's, or there's you can get bored pretty easily up here, but if you do the right things, you can end up living your best life.
Awesome. Evan, do you want to speak a bit about the outdoors and the kind of lifestyle that you can have when you are a pilot up in Canada's north? Might be
Evan
a bit
there?
of technical difficulty there.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead, Evan?
Yeah, so living up here in the north, everything is outdoors, outdoors, outdoors. Everyone has a snowmobile mode of transportation for a lot of people, especially on the coast. Lots of hunting, lots of fishing. See Aurora Borealis like in the previous pictures. Do lots of hunting, and you can go for miles and miles, do lots of exploring, whether it's going down on one of the rivers ice fishing or going up to the Mealy Mountains. There's scenery everywhere, wildlife everywhere, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of places that you'll be the first one to go to.
Cool. I know, do you guys cargo deliver skidoos to communities up north?
Yeah, so we actually did a couple of charters to a place called Natwashish the other day, and I believe we have 5 flights, and we had snowmobiles on every single one. You'll take snowmobiles. I've taken a full load of Comatics that you tow behind your skidoo. I've taken 2 4-wheelers, taken giant tents. But as a lot of them, it's just, but the majority of them, there's even Nain, which is a northernmost community. I've seen people take them out of Nain, bring them to Goose Bay, and they'll drive about 9.5, 10 hours on their skidoo back up the Nain rather than putting on a flight with us. So it's
Wow. Cool. So I'll talk a bit about how to be a pilot in Canada's North. So at MFC training, as you can see, we have 3 bases. We're headquartered in Moncton, New Brunswick, at YQM Airport. We have another base in Fredericton, YFC, and of course, we're happy to announce that we are returning to Goose Bay for 2022 for our seasonal flight school that we started in 2021 last year. So from May 16th to September 16th, we'll again be operating out of Goose Bay Airport. And if you have some more questions, want to learn a bit more about pathways to how you can become a pilot with Air Borealis and fly Canada's North, at the end here, we'll have a screen up with some phone numbers, email addresses, and web pages where you can go and learn a bit more and ask questions about these pathways. So next, I'll hand it over to Robin to talk about the Life in Flight program and all the opportunities there.
Thanks, Aiden. Yeah, I mean, as Aiden was saying, Life in Flight is another pathway to get there. So if you're, have little flight experience or no flight experience at all, and you're looking for a way to fly for Air Borealis, a Life in Flight could be the answer for you. As I was saying earlier, I'm a pilot myself, and I can speak firsthand about some of the challenges that people encounter when they're trying to learn how to fly. One of those being it's pretty expensive. It's mighty expensive. It's a lot of cost up front to learn. And the other thing is, if you're going to put in, as much time as you are and the resources and, make that big decision in life, you kind of want to know that you're going to have a good job at the end of it. Of course, you want to know where you're going to go. So we designed this Life in Flight program, this career pathway program, as a way to kind of tackle those challenges, as well as some other ones, and create an all-encompassing experience to get someone from 0 flight experience or little flight experience up to working for an amazing airline like Air Borealis. So I'll give you kind of nutshell breakdown of how Life in Flight works. It's put on by EIC, Exchange Income Corporation, which is where I am here in Winnipeg. EIC, if you're unfamiliar, is associated with many airlines across the country. The PAL group of airlines or air operators is certainly one of our largest and most significant parts of the EIC family, and Air Borealis is included in that as well. So that's why we're here talking about this as a pathway to get to Air Borealis. But when you apply to the Life in Flight program, you get to pick the airline that you most want to work for once you end up completing your training. So you'd go on, you'd select Air Borealis as that. And if you're selected for the program, you have the commitment that not only are you going to be a student at MFC training, you get to be an instructor at MFC training to get some experience in the air, your very first job. And your second job as a guaranteed pilot position. So again, you know where you're going when you finish training, will be with Air Borealis in the right seat of the Twin Otter. And you get to experience all the things that Brianna and Evan have been telling you about, and get to really live that cool lifestyle. So from the moment you decide you want to learn how to fly to the moment you're actually operating this beautiful Twin Otter, Life in Flight will have your back. It'll be the pathway to help you get there. So some of the things that make our flight training program unique is that we're pretty proud to say we're the first and only program of the sort in Canada that offers access to the funds required to pay for flight training. So through a national banking partner that we have with Life in Flight, our members can apply to receive up to $100,000 in a line of credit to help pay for flight training. It'll obviously cover your flight training expenses, but also help you when you have to relocate to Moncton to live there for a little bit for training. It'll help with those costs. And also, to thank you for your commitment to our group of companies, your time spent as a student and your time spent as an instructor, and of course your career with Air Borealis. And we do have a commitment award involved as well, $25,000 after you've flown for 5 years, to say, hey, thank you for choosing our group to build your career with, to help you, knock off any debt that you have. And if you don't, lucky you, you can go out and buy a snowmobile and join Evan up in Goose Bay on the trails. The flight training that our members go through is called the integrated program. It's a 12-month condensed, really efficient, fun, and challenging flight training program at MFC Training that takes you from zero experience to fully commercial licensed in only 12 months. So you don't have to be a student for that long. You can start earning some money, you can start flying professionally really in as little as a year. So I'll direct you, Aiden's got it up at the end as well, but I'll direct you to lifeinflight.ca if you're interested in learning more information. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. And we hope to see you in the air through the program.
Awesome. So that being said, we'll open up the floor for questions. I see a couple questions that are coming into the chat function, and we can answer a few of those, but we'd ask you to please use the question and answers, or the Q&A function through Zoom, and that makes it pretty easy for us to see, organize, and answer your questions. So if you have any, please start asking. And to our panelists, if you guys want to just open up the chat function there's a couple questions relating to sort of northern flying, such as how many hours on floats do you have to be able to work floats with Air Borealis? Brianna, you might know that question. I know, Evan, you're in that process of gaining those hours right now.
Yeah, so I see a question there from Zoe Michelin. I've heard that name before. I think soon you'll be flying with us. How many hours on floats did you have to be able to work float to Air Borealis? So I was lucky enough, I got my float rating from my father. He has a Cessna 172 on floats, and he gave me my float rating. And yeah, as soon as I found out Air Borealis offers float planes, that's obviously where I wanted to go. So for hours, if you got a float rating, that's all they really care about. Like, if you got a float rating, you're basically going right on the float plane if there's seats open. Like, we usually do about 2 or 3 co-pilots on the float plane in the summertime. This past summer we only had 2 of us, and it was a big workload for sure. So if you guys have a float rating, then come work with us.
Awesome.
Switching gears here, I can answer one that I'm noticing is someone has asked, can you join MFC at different stages in flight training? Certainly, I'll answer from the MFC perspective, but also Life in Flight if that's the program you're interested in specifically. At MFC will meet you wherever you are in your flight training. So you can have 0 flight training, or you can be, looking for just your instructor rating at the very end of it. And MFC will have a program that certainly fits your needs and can train you from wherever you're at. For the Life in Flight program specifically, same thing. A lot of people join the program with little or no experience, but that is not the only pathway. Same thing, will meet you where you're at and help you finish up your ratings and your licenses that are required to get you completely qualified. And yeah, we'll go from there and pick you up in the program wherever you're at.
Awesome.
Lots of questions coming now.
I see another one about the life in flight, specifically if there's an age limit for the life in flight program. There's certainly no upper end limit. It's never too late to start in the program or to, you know, become a pilot yourself. We've got a lot of students that start, members of the program, excuse me, that start as soon as right out of high school, but then we've got a lot of people in their, you know, 30s, 40s, even early 50s who are considering career changes. And, you know, I've always wanted to do this, and we're just looking for the right pathway to do it. And we're happy to, you know, be that pathway for those people. So on the lower end, you have to be 18 years old. You have to have graduated from high school, so have a high school transcript. And 18 years old is the minimum requirement to hold a commercial license in Canada, so 18.
I see another one there too. Basically, we hire anyone, like if you got your commercial multi-engine and IFR, you don't need your ATPLs and you don't need your INRAT exam either. You don't require to have a float rating to work up here, but if you have one, obviously you'll get to experience all that I've experienced, luckily. And yeah, see what else we got.
And to tag along with Brianna, I see a couple of people there too asking about like the low time as well. It all kind of depends. I was fortunate enough that they were in the hiring process right out of flight school. So I finished up this past August, and by the end of September, I was on flying with Air Borealis. And once you get on, you can build some hours pretty quick. I've got about 300 to 350 hours since August, so you can definitely get some hours built up then, whether you plan on staying here, hopefully you do, or if you plan on moving on. It's definitely a quick way to get some pretty crazy experience and some hours.
Yeah, time building for sure. Like this past year, I've flown over 1,000 hours in 1 year, and obviously it was a lot of hard work, and your time building up here can go really fast. And yeah, if you want flying time and hands-on flying, this is the spot for you.
Just to kind of add to that, Brianna, you've done so much flying in this last year, and you know, through the pandemic, the industry has been a little bit crazy. Other sectors of the industry, like, you know, passenger travel in the southern communities, it slowed down so much through the pandemic because we weren't allowed to do it, right? But that's kind of a cool part about Air Borealis and a lot of our other northern operators, kind of in our family of companies, is that the work never stops. People still, medevac services are always needed. Cargo services are always needed. You know, communities that can't otherwise be accessed are always going to need to fly. So it's pretty special to be able to work for a company that you know you're always going to have that opportunity to fly, no matter what the situation kind of in the world is. So that's neat.
Yeah, we definitely got busier during COVID. Like, yes, I know different airlines around the world had pilots laid off, but we got much busier because everyone, I guess, was at home and ordering things off Amazon, and we had more cargo flights than ever and more medevac services. And yeah, we definitely got busier for sure.
I see a question here about the criteria for applying to life in flight. Talked about that a little bit, but I can give you the rest of the criteria as well. So 18 years old, graduated high school. You need a Cat 1 medical, a Transport Canada Category 1 medical. That's the, you know, it's a legal requirement to become a commercial pilot in Canada. So you'd have to contact a TC medical examiner to get that appointment done. Unfortunately, it's not every doctor that does it. So it's a little bit of a process, but not too onerous. We are looking for someone with a clean criminal record. You'd be applying at some point through many of our operators for a restricted area identification card, which is associated with working at certain airports, and that's a requirement for them. And finally, I know this ties into a couple other questions that I've seen on here. At this time, Life in Flight is only able to accept applications from Canadian citizens and permanent residents of Canada. That is, however, something we're hoping to change and we're working to change. So, you know, check back in with us if you're still interested, but aren't a citizen of Canada right now.
Do you want to hear from David about how many months, years did it take you to get to know your limits regarding adverse weather and conditions? So, like we said earlier, it's always changing after a while. Like, I'm starting to get comfortable with it now, but there's times even captains with 20,000 hours will go into somewhere and decide, you know what, like, I've done this before, but I'm not going to do it today just because stuff can change so quickly. And for flying at night, once you leave Goose Bay, as soon as you leave, it's just black. There's just some small communities you'll see way in the distance, but it's pretty black everywhere else. So you really learned how to rely on your instruments, especially approaches. And all the communities on the coast, I believe, have IFR approaches, all RNAV approaches. I think they got rid of all the DME approaches and stuff. So yeah, you can get the plane down pretty low. And as Brianna mentioned, there's a lot of captains that have been doing this for a long time. So if they can still maintain VFR and say, oh, we can take this way rather than going this way, and maybe if we go over here, there's no one else like some of our Air Borealis captains that can put a plane in.
Yeah, that's so
for
true.
the
Like
best.
they know all the landmarks, they know every river, every road, every tree. And yeah, like Evan said, we always try to go in VFR if it's safe, of course. And another question here, how to apply to Air Borealis and how is the interview process? So I'm pretty sure you can apply online if you search up Air Borealis and you send in your resume and cover letter. And the interview process for me, what did I do? It was myself and the chief pilot and a person from HR in St. John's. We were all on a phone call and they just asked me like certain situations. If this captain put you in this position, how would you respond? And basically just talking about your experience in the interview. And yeah.
And there's another one here about the process of training as well. So with our training, you'll do the same as you would through flight school. You'll go through ground school, how the plane flies, what your limitations are, what your limits are, and then you'll get some one-on-one time up flying the Twin Otter, practicing approaches, stalls, steep turns, emergency descents, and I believe it's about 5 to 10 hours. And then you'll do what's called your line and dock. So you'll get on with some of the senior captains and they'll take you to all the different communities and get you to try some approaches, some landings, kind of get you to know how the whole Air Borealis environment works. But at first it's pretty intense because it's a lot all at once. But once you do it so many times, there's times you're doing a dozen takeoff and landings in a day. So it starts to come pretty quickly after a while.
I see a question on here about an average, like an academic average that we look for acceptance to life in flight. Honestly, guys, there isn't one. I mean, the higher your grades are, the better, obviously, but that's not the whole picture, and we recognize that there's so much more to a person than that. So, as long as you have some sort of math or science aptitude, and I don't mean you need to have A's. I just mean you're comfortable with those subjects. Those are kind of the only ones that are really applicable to learning how to fly, and even so, it's maybe less than you think. So as long as you're comfortable with those subjects and you kind of have average grades in those subjects, that's what we're looking for from the academic side. But more than anything, it's looking for someone who's really passionate about learning how to fly and wants to work for companies like Air Borealis and truly wants to build their career with our family of companies, and just, enthusiasm and, a dedication to aviation is more so what we look for. To be honest, we're looking for just a great fit for the company versus a certain average.
I see another one there from Daniel, just asking about like the winds and the conditions and stuff. What was windiest conditions? I got stuck in Blanc-Sablon probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I think the highest it picked up to down there was about 57 knots straight across the runway.
Whoa.
But I also went into Nain there a couple weeks ago, and we were just about to start the approach, and we got a call on the radio saying that the winds picked up to about 46 knots. And Nain is a very weird community when it comes to it, because the airstrip is right on the side of the hills and kind of in a valley. So a lot of times you'll touch down with a headwind, but by the time you get to the other end of the runway, now the wind is directly on your tail. So we say up in Nain that if both the windsocks are facing the same direction, it's a bad day.
Well, while we're taking care of the last couple questions there, I think they're trickling off. Let's talk about some next steps. So if you're interested in flying Canada's North and you like the stories and the experiences that Brianna, Robin, and Evan shared here today, your next step would be to connect with us. So we have MFC Training's phone number there on the screen, as well as our admissions team's email. So they're very responsive. They'll get back to you soon with questions, more information, as well as, like Robin said, we have the Life and Flight program, and you can see the web address to the website there, and you can find a lot more information on that program, requirements, etc. there. So if we don't have any more questions, I'd like to wrap it up and thank everyone for attending today. So thanks everybody for coming to our Fly the North, a webinar on flying in Canada's North.